What's going on, guys? Today on the podcast, we are talking about the 2006 hit Little Miss Sunshine. I really enjoyed watching this movie, and it was really interesting to watch it from the lens of a parent. So I hope you check it out if you haven't seen it in a while. Joining me is Cathrine Brown. She's a corporate marketing leader, founder of the Cabro, which is a platform for ambitious working mothers, and she's also a mother of two. While discussing this movie, we get into topics like mental health, toxic positivity, body shaming. It was a lot of really interesting parenting topics came up from watching this. So hope you enjoy. My name is Anthony Franzese. You're listening to the Successful Working Parents podcast, where normally we interview working parents about how they're able to balance it all and still thrive. But sometimes we watch movies and break down the family and parenting moments in them. If you enjoy this episode, please give us a follow. Anyway, on to the show. Welcome back to the Successful Working Parents podcast, the podcast where we talk to successful working parents. Today, we are talking about the 2006 hit Little Miss Sunshine. To join me today is Cathrine Brown, mother of two. Cathrine, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much, Anthony. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this movie with you. Before we do that, though, why don't you give the audience a little intro on yourself?
Sure. So I am Cathrine, and I live in Seattle. I am a corporate marketing leader for a tech company. Even though I live in Seattle, it's based in San Francisco, so I work remotely. And I'm the founder of the Cabro, which is a platform for ambitious working mothers. I'm a mom of two children, as you already said, and I really love stories, and especially stories that talk about the messy parts of parenthood, especially when we're not being perfect and it goes into being a little bit more human. So Little Miss Sunshine does that so well, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. So when I approached you about doing an episode, this is the movie you suggested. What's your relationship with this movie?
I remembered watching this movie and just laughing at the end of it. And as I watched it again as a mother, I've watched it twice now. So once when I saw it the first time, and then once as a mother, it was amazing to see how my view of all of the characters in the storyline was completely different as a parent. Just noticing the grandfather and the parenting of the grandfather and the uncle and that relationship and the son and the daughter and everyone. And it was very different going back. I haven't really done that with a movie yet.
Yeah, I mean, I like you. I saw this movie when it came out. It had a lot of buzz. It was like the hot indie independent film, and I
Mhm.
hadn't seen it since. I really thought about it, and yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say about the dad. I have a lot to say about a lot of this, but this movie was a great movie. I really enjoyed watching it and looking at it through this lens. It won the Academy Award for Best Screenplay, which I thought was
Mhm.
well deserved, as did the grandpa one. Yeah, that actor, I forget his name, but he won for Best Supporting Actor. Olive, the daughter Olive, was also nominated as well. Okay, so let's dive in. So the movie starts off. We get a really great kind of like setting the stage of who everyone is. We have Olive watching beauty pageants. The dad's like an aspiring Tony Robbins type of guy, and then we learn that he's unsuccessful thus far.
Sure.
We have Jane, Paul Dano. This is like early Paul Dano stuff, and we see him just like working out for what seems like 400 days or so.
Yeah.
The grandpa immediately doing illicit drugs. So I forgot that. I guess the movie's rated R. I forgot that the movie was really not like a family movie so much.
No,
Uh,
it's not. I forgot about that part as well.
yeah, and the mom is going to get her suicidal brother from the hospital, Steve Carell, who I thought also was great in this movie.
Do you know what I had to do? I was watching it. I was actually on my phone and I saw it and I almost didn't recognize him. And I had to go back and look and
Mm,
check to see if that was really him. Um,
yeah,
and just, yeah, phenomenal role
yeah.
for
This was like after 40-year-old version, I think. So he was like really
him.
hot, and this is like a really great like kind of a different take from him.
Well,
But
and
yeah,
he
they so this.
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. He was one season into The Office, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, really? Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they set the stage really well for everybody, and then the first kind of interaction we get with his family is the dinner scene, I
Mhm.
guess it's light up, but they're eating dinner. We learn that Uncle Frank has to stay in Dwayne's room because he can't be trusted alone, and Dwayne has taken a vow of silence for 90 days.
Right.
So my first question for you is: your kids are a little young to be taking vows of silence, but your son or daughter tells you that they want to take a vow of silence. What's your what's your reaction to that?
Wow. Um, So one thing that I should probably note for your audience is that I do have my master's degree in counseling psychology. I did not end up going into the field. And
Oh
so,
wow, okay, this is perfect then.
yeah, so I very much have that running in the back of that filter that things are coming through. And I think, looking at that, I have two reactions. One, I loved how the mother just accepted what her son wanted and supported him where he was at. And I would probably do a psych eval just to make sure everything was okay,
Sure, yeah,
especially if
understandable.
my brother is, dealing with what he's dealing with. So I
Yeah.
think the one thing that I loved about the mother in this is that she fought so hard for her children
Hmm.
despite all of the dysfunction. Each one of them she was, fighting for at the same time. So that would be my reaction.
Yeah. No, I mean we'll get into this, but I feel like the mom was like a great example of the things to do right, and the dad was mostly like a bad example of like how to treat your kids.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, right, where you want to be supportive. If my daughter really isn't talking at all and is choosing to vow silence, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'd force her to talk, but I definitely want to just make sure she's okay.
For sure.
Um, so I really enjoyed this scene. It was really funny. Uncle Frank keeps trying to talk to Dwayne, even though he's not talking. Um, the other big topic that's throughout this movie, which I thought was really great, was the discussion of mental health, and obviously Uncle Frank trying to commit suicide.
Sure.
And they're kind of debating telling this to the daughter, who's 7.
Yeah.
So similarly, like you're at the dinner table and you have a family member that committed suicide. I mean, are you sharing that story with your daughter, your 7-year-old daughter?
You know, 7 years old. I don't have a 7-year-old yet. And my gut reaction was, yeah, do it. Go for it. Have the conversation. It doesn't mean that it doesn't make my stomach go in knots and make me nervous about having it. I think that being honest and upfront with your children in an age appropriate way is really important to figure out how to do. And it's something that I'm not perfect at it, but I certainly would have had that conversation. She's going to hear it. So do you want, do I want my child to hear it from me, or do I want my child, to hear it through someone else, a family member, a brother who doesn't even have his own emotional intelligence fully formed at his age?
Yeah, I think in reality, it would have been a good chance to kind of talk more about that and like why people have
Yeah.
that feeling and why people sometimes do that. Like she obviously, like as a little kid, was like thought it was like almost like silly that he didn't really understand why he would try to kill himself.
Right.
But I think that's a great opportunity to talk about the realities of mental health challenges. And a little earlier, this is 2006. It wasn't as common of a topic as it is today. So it was nice to see kind of that early stage. So yeah, we hear why too, right? He fell in love with his grad student,
Yeah.
this guy Larry Sugarman. And then was Larry Sugarman the guy he loved, or that was the competitor of his?
You know what? I actually went and looked it up. They did not give the name of his grad student. That was
Oh, they
when I looked
didn't.
it up, they didn't. So Larry was the name of his
Okay, yeah, Larry
competition.
was because he's a Prue. It's pronounced Prue, right? He's a Prue scholar, Prouse scholar.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. And Larry Sugarman was like the number 2 guy, and then he wins a genius grant over him, and he steals his lover, and it's a whole thing. So
Yeah.
that's why he went for that. And so I want to talk about the dad. The dad is like, I think, like toxic positivity, which is now like a thing that people say. I mean, back like now he would be like a satirized character on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like he's
Yeah.
like the way like what is wrong with like influencer culture today is a lot of
Mhm.
this like he tells them like luck is the name losers give their own failings. Like I just thought that he was the worst.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was uncomfortable with him as I was very uncomfortable with him, and
Yeah.
thinking about the mother who is such a lovely character and certainly has her own flaws as a human being. However, his flaws were just, I think one of the worst moments for me, there were two. It was the continued homophobia throughout the
Hmm.
movie, but also, his conversation with his daughter, the fat phobia about her, getting fat and eating
Yeah.
the ice cream and kind of ruining that moment. I also thought it was a very beautiful moment when the rest of the family members started to eat her ice cream and kind of like showed support for her to eat it. but for the dad, yeah, I don't know. I thought about it. I was like, what would I do if I was married to someone like that?
Yeah.
I don't like, first of all, I don't know how I'd get into that position to begin with, but what would I
Mhm.
do? You know?
Yeah, the problem is that he's has this daughter, right? Like it's one thing that he's like this problematic character, but I think what worries you is that he's influencing the daughter in these ways and like saying these things to her that are just again just like such toxic positivity.
Right, right. And just very problematic.
Yes, super problematic,
Yeah.
and yeah, all of my what is the worst takes are really based around him. But
Yeah.
so basically, like the plot of the movie is that they Olive finds out that she gets into the little Miss Sunshine beauty pageant.
Right.
By the way, because another girl got caught taking diet pills. I don't know if you caught that little
I did.
tidbit.
I caught
Yeah,
that. Very
uh,
interesting.
we'll get into the beauty pageant stuff. We'll have a whole section on that later. But yeah, so she gets in, and they have to figure out how to all get to Redondo Beach. They can't really afford to fly. They can't leave Uncle Frank alone. And so
Mm-mm.
they basically decide to all get in a van and drive there. Now, Uncle Frank does not seem to go under any psychiatric care for a guy that literally just committed suicide and still has his
Yeah.
bandages on. They just kind of let him go.
Very, very problematic.
Yeah.
Also very indicative of the hospital system, the medical system for mental health.
Mhm.
And that was right before I did my program. And it was very common for, there not to be appropriate care for people, holding them. And it's different per state. So, yes, very, very interesting to have
Okay.
him.
So actually, real you think actually realistically how it might have been?
Um, in certain states, it actually depends. And I don't know the laws at this point. It's been about 14 years since I graduated, but different states have different laws. If you want to commit someone, you have involuntary and voluntary, and it really just depends on the state that you're in. And a lot of
Mhm.
places just don't. There's not an enforcement, especially in those situations. If the person says they're not going to do it, they'll often just discharge them, which is
Right.
really tough.
Yeah. I mean, give him one conversation before you let him go.
Yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
So they're in the car, and as you mentioned, the grandpa's like pretty unhinged and homophobic at times, and
So unhinged.
a very problematic character. This made me think about like dealing with in laws. This is obviously an extreme example, but you know, I feel like the in law relationship is like a tale as old as time, and this is like the one where you'd like as the mother in the car, like she must have like she would have been like, okay, let's get him out of the car because I can't have this any
Yeah,
longer.
yeah. Yeah, that's a tough one because I thought about that, this
Like if
fam
that's your father-in-law, like what are you doing?
what would I be doing?
Yeah, yeah,
If that was my father-in-law, gosh, I it's hard because, here I am trying to support my husband. She also
yeah.
seems extremely overwhelmed. I would have found another place for him to stay, like, quite quickly.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, he wouldn't be that father-in-law would not be under my roof.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, he was kicked out of his retirement home for snorting heroin.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
and then bringing that in my home with my children, it's not a good
Yeah,
thing.
it's always tricky with in-laws because like you obviously don't want to like overstep your boundaries, and it's like kind of like on your partner to manage any parental stuff with them, but you just sometimes you got to speak up on what's going on.
Sure, sure. That one was another interest. That was part of the questionable, with the mother allowing those types of things, but
Yeah.
we didn't see that plot line of how he ended up there, other than or how he continued to stay there. I mean,
Right. Right. Right.
ouch.
Right. Yeah. 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 Like find another place for him.
Yeah,
So the next big scene is the diner they stop at. Again,
sure.
the dad is he's saying things like apologizing is a sign of weakness, telling her she'll get fat if she eats ice cream. Like it's just like all the worst things you wouldn't want to impress upon your 7-year-old daughter.
Absolutely. That was the hardest. There were a lot of hard moments, but that one was the hardest one for me to watch.
Yeah, yeah. So the clutch of the car breaks, and so now they have to push it up to like 15 to 20 miles per hour. I looked it up. An adult can run up to 25, 30 miles per hour. So I suppose it's
Wow.
possible to have to do this, but it seemed like it was a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have to look that up.
And then what are the chances that Uncle Frank runs into his grad student?
You ask me kind of like what was maybe a a plot hole or
Yeah.
something that was, kind of not realistic. And I just felt like that was a little too, I don't know, like on the nose to have that
Yeah.
happen, or a little wild to have it happen. I'm sure it was meant to be kind of this everything's crazy. I mean, why am I saying that it was, unrealistic that that would happen when all these other unrealistic things happen in the movie? But I
Yeah.
felt like that part was kind of funny to me. But you did get a good look at who the two people were and how
Yeah.
obnoxious this number two guy, Larry Sugarman, was.
Larry Sugarman. Yeah, but he's, I mean, Uncle Frank's already sad, so I don't know what this did for the plot, really. Like, because I guess he was like kind of on the upswing from the car ride, then it kind of brings it back down by seeing him. But it could have been, they could have done that without having him run into him, I guess. But
Yeah.
that's what they do. The dad does not get this contract for his, I guess his like 9-step Tony Robbins type of program that he's trying to sell. So
Not 10, 9. 9.
right, yeah, it's 9, not 10. And yeah, so the parents are fighting about it. There was another good moment that was pretty brief where the grandpa like kind of tries to protect Olive from hearing them fighting, which
Mhm.
is a thing that now that my daughter's almost 2, it's like you're gonna fight with your spouse sometimes, and you have to really think about what your
Yeah.
kids see and what they don't see. I don't know if you have any takes on that.
Yeah, I think, I definitely resonate with that because in our own marriage, we've had to say, not now, not the time,
Yeah,
and it's really being a parent has made us have to hold on to things and find the right time to talk about it. Whereas when we didn't have children and we were just married or dating, we would hash it out right then. We wouldn't go to dinner, or we'd figure it out, stay up late, but it's just not possible. But I did
yeah,
appreciate that it's so interesting, though, that that's the conversation that the grandfather wanted to prevent her from hearing, not all the other things that,
yeah. That's true. All of
was
his
so
talk was fine, but
inappropriate,
yeah,
right? And also with going back to the ice cream, not to go backwards in the movie, but to go back to the ice cream, he was the one that pushed back and started eating the ice cream and started the conversation with the uncle and the brother, and I thought that was so interesting for a man who was just kind of a little gross at
I
times.
mean, obviously, part of what's endearing about this character is that he does kind of care for the granddaughter, regardless of all of his flaws, right? That's why, like, that's what a good character is, and that's why he won the Academy Award for portraying him because he wasn't just like a total piece of shit.
Yeah,
He had some good in there, but yeah, I mean, in reality, is the kind of grandfather that's snorting heroin and speaking the way he is going to be a good like
and taught
fatherly
her that
figure?
dance, taught her the
Yeah.
dance, the song.
Oh man, yeah. We'll get to the dance. We'll get to the dance. But more toxic dad stuff. Olive is confiding in the grandfather, sort of like worrying, like if she's pretty, she's afraid she doesn't want to be a loser because her dad hates losers. Again, like all the kinds of stuff that you would hate to like impress upon your kid. I was thinking about this as I was thinking about how much I didn't like this character. I think part of it is like I fear as a father, like being that, right? Because I also, you want to be like, hey, like be positive, like don't let stuff like get you down. And I think that this is what, especially just dealing with a kid or just dealing with people that don't feel that way. It's like then you just start to like invalidate their feelings and have them worry about sharing their feelings. And I think that this,
Right.
so I think I probably like saw some like parts of myself in that, which
For
made
sure.
me concerned.
Well, I think what it does is this I'll get into the psychology of it. We're projecting, right? We're
Yeah,
projecting our own dislike for the character because it's bringing up those own feelings in us that we are all going to do something like that to our child. Now, hopefully not any sort of fat phobia
right.
conversations, but there's going to be things that even the best parent, the most, with a psychology degree or whatever, the most, healthy, emotionally healthy person is going to pass down. And I think that what it does for all of us is makes us a little, to deny the fact that there's a little bit of that dad in all of us is to deny our humanity. And I think
Yeah,
it just really makes us all uncomfortable
no, it's
watching.
true. I
Yeah.
mean, again, why that's why it's a good movie, right? Because it does have
Yeah.
these like relatable parts. I mean, not to get like too heteronormative or whatever, but I feel like one of the most common tropes of male female interaction is the man being like action oriented when the woman is like sharing something that she's dealing with and struggling with. I mean, me and my wife do this all the time, where she's like shares with me something that she's having a hard time with, and I just like go right into action mode, and she just wants to talk about it and like
Yeah.
be seen. And I feel like this is exactly like what I'm afraid I'm doing wrong, right? Is this like pushing my agenda on somebody when they just kind of want to talk about how they're feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Same,
Yeah.
same over here.
Yeah. Okay, so the dad borrows a little bike somehow and drives to Scottsdale. I don't know how he got the bike. We could get into that too, but
Yeah.
he gets to Scottsdale trying to salvage this the issue with selling his program. Bryan Cranston is the agent. I thought that was
Right.
fun from Breaking Bad. Are you a Breaking Bad fan?
Do you know what? I got to the beginning of season 2 with the first episode with the bathtub, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I cannot.
Mm,
I tried. I was binging
yeah.
it too, so probably
Okay.
if I go back to it, I need to pace myself. You
Maybe
know,
this hopefully this inspires you to go back to it. It's
yeah,
really it's such a good show. I mean, it
it is.
gets crazier than the bathtub stuff, but
I know. I've heard it's so good. Like it's
yeah,
really good. I need to go watch it.
yeah, you do. But yeah, so he's in that. Um, so the grandpa passes away.
Hmm.
Do they say did he OD on drugs? Was that clear, or he just
It was
dies?
not clear. He fell asleep and then how did the doctor word it? Because I remember thinking he said, and he just didn't wake back up
Yeah,
or something
something
like
like
wake
that.
back up. And that made me
Yeah,
think the wake back up makes me think
I
from
think
some
we're supposed to. Yeah, I mean, he's obviously doing drugs and he's old, so I think we are supposed to assume perhaps it wasn't good for him to be doing drugs.
right,
And so th- maybe the one good thing that dad does is he kind of like rallies them to not give up here, and they just because they're basically like they can't leave the hospital, they can't leave the dad there, and they can't take the dad with them
right,
based on like state regulation. So
right.
they're about to give up on the whole thing, and the dad rallies them to not give up. They smuggle the grandfather out again. I've been to a lot of hospitals. I don't remember anywhere like the patients are on the first floor right next to the exit, but
Right, right.
usually you're like 8 floors up, but they get him out of there, and then they get pulled over. And we have another Breaking Bad character. I don't know if you recognize him, but the cop
No.
is the cop is Walter White's brother-in-law, Hank from Breaking Bad.
Oh my gosh, I didn't recognize him.
Yeah, yeah, and fortunately, he's a huge perv, and he sees the porn and doesn't see the dead body, and they get away. All right, so then we haven't talked about Dwayne yet, but Dwayne finds out he's colorblind and
Oh,
loses it. And I felt for him. I felt for
I
him because he,
as a mom, that was a hard moment for me. Like, how do
yeah,
you
yeah. I
parent
mean, how do you
one
handle that, right?
well, you're parenting one kid's dream. She's literally sitting there trying to parent one kid's dream while watching another kid's dream just fall apart.
I didn't even think of that. That's a good point.
And just I think it's very indicative. And I'm not going to cry, but I'm definitely my throat is closing a little bit. It's very indicative, I feel like, of parenting two children
Yeah,
and having one kid in one place and another person in another place, and trying to just how do you manage? How do you make one decision in one place that's going to be the exact opposite 5 minutes later, and the children don't understand why you made that judgment call? So it was
yeah,
insane.
yeah. So he loses it. He screams, breaks his vow of silence.
Hmm.
The dad suggests that Olive go talk to him. Classic
Right?
dad, but it helps. Olive goes over to him, gives him a hug, and he apologizes. There's a lot of really good like small moments, like you mentioned, like them eating the ice cream at the diner. There's a lot of like really great small moments of just like family togetherness, kind of
Hmm.
defying the odds or helping rebuild things. And that was another really great, not with everything over the top of this movie. That was like really great, like undertone of just like giving him a hug. He calms down and apologizes. But you're right, like seeing a kid have that reaction and have that disappointment is really tough to deal with as a parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they make it to the competition, and I wrote down at this point. This is good for like Steve Carell's character, Uncle Frank's character, because I feel like it's like giving him some purpose. It's like getting him out of his own head. He's like excitedly like kind of running in, like trying to like get her in on time. Like this was like the perfect thing for him to do, is to have this little mission.
I
Um,
loved it.
but the lady won't check him in. I feel like I didn't need that part, but the lady wouldn't check him in for like because they're 5 minutes late, but someone else helps. I was so glad that Miss California told her she eats ice cream. Like that was like one of my favorite moments because I was like, thank
I
God this girl.
I know, I know. I just watched the mom's face of just the relief
Yeah,
of having her husband say that, and then knowing she's got to somehow figure out how to undo that moment for the rest of her life, and hear Miss California shuts it down
Yeah.
for her and the
Yeah.
relief that she felt.
Yeah. Thank God. All right. I think we have to talk a little bit about kids' beauty pageants. So the dad actually starts to realize this whole thing's like a little freaky. And I
Yeah.
feel like this was such a thing in the 90s and like early 2000s, right? Because you had like the John Benet Ramsey thing, and then Honey Boo Boo was a thing for a while. Like
Oh, yeah.
I thought that kids' beauty pageants had died down, but I looked it up. Apparently, they're still a thing. But I just
Very much.
felt like it was in our face a lot more in the 90s and early 2000s, right?
For sure. You want to hear something fun?
Yes, you used to do it.
I was in a high school beauty pageant in my high school.
Okay.
I did not win,
Okay.
but I did get Congeniality.
Oh,
So I
great.
can't say anything that's going to offend me about it because I think
Well, also, high school is different than 7.
high school, you're right. High school's different. And it was definitely, I had to prepare for it. There was like, standing and making sure you're presenting yourself in a very
Mhm.
elegant way and being articulate when you're on stage and nervous and answering difficult questions with the judges behind the scenes. But yeah, 7 years old, when your brain can't quite comprehend that there's more to this than just your looks, which it is all about their looks and some talent that is not really talent at that age.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and this is the age where it's mostly the parents pushing them. This family is one of the few where it's not, but
Mhm.
all those girls were all dolled up. Like their parents are doing their hair, their parents are doing their makeup and making them look like adult or trying to make them look like adult
Yeah,
women. It's like
yeah,
super unhealthy. And I really hope my daughter doesn't want to do this sort of stuff
yeah,
until she's, again, when you're in high school, I think that's one
yeah.
thing. But
It's
so
different.
was that your first and last foray into the beauty pageant
It
world?
was, and it really was
Well, I'm
just,
sorry. Was it for your high school or you did it in high school? Like it
it was
wasn't
with,
like at your school.
oh, no, it was with my high school. It was
Oh, your
sponsored
school did a beauty pageant?
at a beauty pageant. So I grew up in
Wow.
the South. So a lot of
Okay.
things are still
Okay.
different down there.
Interesting.
And
Interesting.
there's a whole circuit of, you know, high school beauty pageants. And if you win the beauty pageant, then you get to be in the homecoming parade the next year and you kind of
Oh,
get to
wow.
school and different things. And so there is like a little bit of a leadership opportunity and kind of like I don't know how to, when I say branding at the age of 17, but it also, you speak, you do a lot of other things. And so it
Yeah.
gives you this, opportunity to put yourself out there a little bit and put it on your high school resume.
Okay. So it's kind of almost like the Boy Scouts. There's like a little bit of like prestige to it if you go up the ranks and stuff like that.
Sure, sure. And then they have them in college where,
Yeah.
then you go to the Miss Georgia pageant. I was never in any of those, but I did it more because my friends did it. It was just,
Sure.
it
Well, it
was
sounds
fun.
like a more common thing to do down there.
Sure. I got to wear my prom dress again. I was really,
Okay.
excited about that. So,
Yeah. No, but I mean, I feel like high school is already such a popularity contest. The idea of like a beauty contest amongst the girls at that same high school, yeah, that seems
well,
hard.
and my best friend won it the year before, which
Oh,
is
wow.
so funny. Yeah, she won
Okay.
it the year before. So,
Well, congrats on Miss Congeniality.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So they're starting to kind of realize it's problematic. I
Yep.
really, really like the scene with Uncle Frank and Dwayne talking outside, and Uncle Frank shares that all those years that Proust, is it pronounced Proust? Do you know?
Actually, don't know.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Proust.
Yeah, I rewound it to try and hear what he said, and I
Uh-huh.
couldn't hear it, and then I didn't look it up.
It's not Proust the way it's spelled, but yeah. So all these years that Proust had suffered were the best years of his life because it made him who he was. And so and this is something that I think a lot about of like you want your kids to have some resilience, but you can't
Sure.
really like fabricate it, right? Like it's almost like you have to just have like just enough trauma to
Hmm.
develop some character. But
Yeah,
if you give your kid a perfect life, they're probably not going to be equipped to like handle everything that well. But you also can't just like intentionally make their life shitty.
right, right.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes about high school comes from Mindy Kaling, who was also in The Office,
Hmm.
and she says, "Don't peak in high school." It was in her first book.
Yeah.
You don't want to peak in high school, and so I think about that a lot. The resiliency that I had from my own challenges in high school have made me who I am today.
Yeah.
And yeah, they
No,
weren't fun. I might trade some of them, but some of
right.
them, you know,
But
it
like, but like they're like just enough, right? I mean, like my
yeah.
parents got divorced and I was like 8, but they were still like both of my lives. Like it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like that horrific. So like I think that kind of gives you some character, but it wasn't like this crazy trauma that I grew up just like
Yeah.
mad at the world about, right? So it's like a few degrees in the wrong direction, and you know, you end up a
Yeah.
lot differently. I wish someone had kind of shared this with me when I was younger, because eventually you do get to an age where you kind of have this acceptance that life is hard. But
Right.
like, I don't know if you tell a 7-year-old that, but it does seem like something that's good to hear when you're kind of going through it when you're in your teen years. But I didn't.
Sure.
No one really told that to me.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if anyone told it to me like that.
Like, do you think about like sharing these sorts of hardship lessons with your kids as they get older?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
do. I think about sharing some of them in the right framework and at the right moment. And I don't think it's going to feel I think it will feel right and scary, and it will also feel very uncomfortable. I don't think I'll
Yeah.
be comfortable talking about it, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's not right.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So the dad and the brother, they try to stop Olive from being in the pageant. Dwayne's like, this place is fucked. Like they immediately realize this is not what we're used to doing. This is not like
Yeah,
a regional thing. But the mom says we have to let Olive be Olive and let
right.
her have this experience again. I think she's doing really everything right. I have very few negative things to say about the mom, and a lot to say about the dad. Like I think the mom was doing a great job.
For sure.
Um, and
For sure.
they let her do it. So okay, so she basically does a strip dance to Super Freak for her talent. We don't see, as you know, like there's a few stages
Yeah.
of a beauty pageant. We don't see anything else she does. We just see this. She's
Yeah.
not even really dancing.
No.
The host is like, we didn't talk about the host, but the host is pretty creepy. He's like, you know, he
Extremely.
sings to the girls earlier, and he's like kind of creepily into this. So the fact that Grandpa taught her all these moves, I think that's might be my biggest issue with the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because
So
also, did she never do this routine before? Right? Like the family is shocked when you're, you know, I assume they saw her at other times at other pageants. So I don't know if this is like, usually when you get to the big show, you don't like try something new. So the whole thing was kind of crazy.
yeah. I think to be honest, I haven't spent a ton of time thinking about how horrific that part was because of all the other things that I felt like there were kind of a few more problematic things that happened with the grandfather,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
moment that wasn't the most horrific to me. Um, and, I'll have to think about that actually. I think it was really just that other things were more extremely problematic, doing drugs, having
I mean,
drugs on a child,
in,
and
in his defense, she's wearing headphones when he says a lot of the stuff in the car.
for
But
sure.
the implication here is that they're in private sessions, he's teaching her these dance moves to Super
You know
Freak.
what? Now you put that out there. That
Yeah,
makes me uncomfortable.
yeah. There's something not, and I think it's, you know,
What?
if you,
That is weird.
yeah, it's weird. It's super weird. You know, rest in peace, Grandpa. But yeah, I think that was crazy, and again, like a big surprise that nobody kind of mentions that part of it, but. To me, the
No.
implication is a little strange, but yeah, I mean, it's total chaos. That old lady wants her off the stage.
Right.
The dad starts dancing with her, so eventually the whole family joins in, and that's a really nice moment where they're all, you know, again, just like really supportive of her. They somehow get arrested. I don't know if what they did that was illegal, but they end up like in the police office,
Uh-huh.
and then they have to just get a lifetime ban from California beauty pageants as long as, and then they can leave.
Yeah.
And
It's
and the
very, very
only
disappointing to get that back.
yeah,
I'm just
I
kidding.
know. So the only thing, like I thought the movie ended sort of suddenly and abruptly. I thought I don't know. I would have liked a little. I guess it would have been too corny to have just some sort of like reflective moment of reflection with the family, but they just kind of drove away. I don't know if you thought anything of that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the whole movie is very abrupt. There are a lot
Yeah,
of just very abrupt moments that just feel um, uncomfortable and leave you feeling like something's unfinished in a way.
yeah, yeah. I agree, and I guess that's part of the point, right? We're left to kind of wonder. I mean, it's not clear that the dad's going to have any success. You know,
Yeah,
we don't know how Uncle Frank's going to do. I think Olive's beauty pageant career is over, so we're not really sure how they're going to go on. But they got each other, I guess, is the idea.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so a few discussion questions. So, what do you think has aged the best since 2006?
Steve Carell's career
Yeah, good one.
was that was great. I actually went back and looked at all of his movies
Hmm.
on Wikipedia and to kind of like get a reference point. And you're right, it was right after Anchorman. He was one season into The Office, and then two of my other favorite movies he is in would be The Big Short. I That's one of
Mm.
my movies that I'll watch when, my repeat movies, and then Crazy Stupid Love came after that.
Oh, oh yeah.
I really liked that movie with Ryan, oh my gosh,
Ryan
Gosling,
Reynolds.
Emma
Oh, Ryan
Stone.
Gosling, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. And I just thought it was one of the first movies where you see him as you just see the range that he has as an actor. And I thought that, you know, it helped his career to have some of those other non-silly comedy roles.
Yeah, I mean, I love Crazy Stupid Love as well. I feel like Love it like lives in Love Actually shadow as far as just like
Yeah.
interconnected rom com type of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
I do like that movie a lot. I agree with you. I was gonna say like just the talking about mental health stuff has aged really well. I mean, now it's a lot
Uh-huh.
more accepted. The stigma's really removed, and so I think that
Mhm.
whatever this movie did to just like show like talking about mental health and showing people with mental health challenges was great. And then
Mhm.
also, I don't know if this aged the best, but just like the toxic positivity influencer, like that.
Yeah,
There's a million of that dad now that exists, right? And they're charging you for courses, and they're like,
yeah.
they're doing all kinds of stuff, and they're not necessarily successful themselves. And so this is long before that time came, so it was pretty interesting foreshadowing. What about what aged the worst for you?
I talked about it already. It was the fat phobia and the homophobia,
Yeah, yeah,
and the
yeah.
way that Olive is shamed for potentially gaining weight. And I think that, I was watching I was thinking back, it's 2006 and the jokes about Frank's sexuality.
Hmm.
And I feel like those moments really date the film. I feel like if those moments were to happen in films now, the interpretation would be different. It wouldn't be to be funny. Like
Yeah,
those were kind of some of the comedic moments. And so I think you know, it's a reminder of how far we've come as a society, but also how far we need to go talking about bodies and queerness, especially in front of children. And I
yeah,
think, for me as a mother, as a woman, I'm very conscious of how I talk about my own body in front of my children, both my son and my daughter. And yeah, it's
yeah. I mean, it wouldn't have even been like of note that he was gay in 2025, right? Like, I feel like
no, no.
they give that part of the character to give him like a little extra like juice, and it's just like irrelevant today.
You know what? I think today those they would mock the person saying those things, not the queer person in the movie.
Right? Yeah,
They would
totally.
do it to show how that person is wrong.
Yeah, and the grandpa gets canceled in 2025. I don't think. I think
Oh,
that the
100%.
yeah, I think that the movie doesn't have the buzz it has, like because it's like now you have to be like so much edgy, like just like so much different.
Yeah,
Um, and then of course, little kid beauty pageants. I think have aged poorly, and
absolutely.
hopefully they're starting to go. Okay, best and worst parenting moment.
Best parenting moment is just how they rally around Olive. They don't stop to debate whether it's worth it to go. It's just
Mhm.
like, well, I'm going
Yeah,
and I will just drive down there and here's how we're going to do it. And then, everyone has their kind of objection and the mom figures it out. And I think it's such a great model of parenting that's not controlling your child's dreams. To your point, child beauty pageants, they probably didn't know what was involved in it. They are problematic, but at the same time, like the mother, found a way to support her daughter, even when it's like inconvenient or awkward or messy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Worst.
Worst, we've already, really talked about, again, the
Everything
one
the dad did. Everything the dad did.
the dad did. It was
Yeah.
the ice cream moment. That one was the one that just really made me cringe. On camera because I think that for me, you know what it is? For me, that would be a turning point in my marriage. you
Yeah.
know? And I'm sure that there were other moments before that where he's done those problematic things, but I think that's the first time that I see really who he is, and it really makes me question, what would I do in that situation?
And they actually don't do a good job of showing that the mom has too much of an issue with the way the dad is. They're fighting really more about like finances and like
Yeah.
his business failing. She doesn't seem to. I guess that's why they're together. But she doesn't really seem to dislike this whole thing. There's a one scene in the van where Uncle Frank's kind of mocking him, and the mom thinks that that's funny, but
Yeah.
she doesn't really have too much of a problem with the way, like, the type of person he is, unfortunately.
No, and again, going back to your comment earlier about watching the dad and hoping that you're not, you know, we all look at the dad and, don't like what he's doing. But I think like also for those of us who are in marriages or committed partnerships, and relationships, it begs the question, what's your breaking point with
Hmm.
someone's flaws? We all
Yeah,
have our flaws. And some people find your flaws to be a breaking point, whereas your partner may not. And so, like, how do you reconcile that I think that's what bothers me is,
yeah.
yeah,
And that's the kind of thing that might not emerge till after you have kids, right? You might not
for
see.
sure.
You see things about your partner that you don't see until you have kids.
For sure. The good and the tough, like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Of course. Yeah. I mean, in general, I just thought like everything the mom did was good, and most of the things the dad did were bad parenting
for
moments.
sure. For
What
sure.
about just most realistic parenting moment?
I When Cheryl is trying to keep it together at the dinner table, like managing the grandfather, supporting Frank, getting Olive fed, like dealing with Richard's delusions, her son trying to get him to go get the chicken out of the car, and just like multitasking and orchestrating that mental load. I
Hmm.
think, that part as a mother, as a woman, that emotional labor was very, very palatable. And I think it was very relatable in some ways. Not that, I have that level of dysfunction that I'm managing at my table or anything, but
Yeah.
just like she was very aware of where every person was at and what they needed and how to like keep everything going. Just keep the train going. Don't make us break down at the dinner table. Let's just keep going.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I know we kind of said this was a negative, but it was very realistic for me, especially like as a father with a daughter, just like wanting to protect your kid from stuff.
Yeah.
The way that the dad and the brother kind of wanted to take her out of the
Yeah.
show. It's like it's hard not to, and I think going back to what we were saying, like you want her to have some negative experiences. Like you can't protect her from everything, right? So you
Right.
want her. It's like you want to kind of almost resist the urge to protect her from things that are not horribly horrific and traumatic. And I think that that's something that as my daughter gets older, I have to like really be more cognizant of.
Yeah. You see too, I mean, everyone in the movie is, except for really Olive, if you think about it, and maybe the mom, is a very selfish character and for various reasons. And you see this unlikable dad and this kind of annoying son,
Hmm.
coming together, the one that's not talking, the one that doesn't get it, and they kind of get it in this moment and they come together and they're trying to
Yeah.
protect Olive. And yeah, that was a good moment.
Yeah. Favorite scene overall.
The one that really touched me was when the grandfather is in the van and Richard found out that he lost his book deal. And the grandfather comes up and said, "At least you tried."
Oh yeah, we didn't
And
talk about that. Yeah.
yeah, and it was I think it's the first time that you see the grandfather as a complex character. He's not just this annoying person. He actually comes up to his son, who they have a very strained relationship, and he says, you know, "At least you tried."
Yeah.
And I just thought, "Huh." I didn't remember that obviously from the first time, but yeah,
Well, he
it was
also says something similar to Olive when when she's worried about being a loser, and he's like, "Losers are the ones that don't try," which
yeah,
kind of the opposite of the way the dad's acting, right? Like they're kind of have these different like ideas of how to handle things, and I agree. I thought that was really nice. I really like the dinner the opening dinner scene, just kind of like feeling out the family at dinner. Everything Steve Carell was doing was funny. It was so subtle, but he kept asking Dwayne questions, like knowing he doesn't talk and like
right.
engaging him. The grandpa like just didn't care at all and like was ignoring the whole thing. Like I really enjoyed that, and it set up the movie understanding who the characters were.
Yeah, it was a great, great scene.
Best life lesson.
I think for me, it's how they just kept showing up for each other, like,
Hmm.
even in their imperfection and in the chaos of it all, and some very problematic moments and characters, they did not lose sight of the mission to get Olive to where she needed to go. And, you know, we didn't talk about this either, but all of the moments of, like, if you think about it, like loser and winner, every person is going through a moment of loser and winner throughout the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
sometimes simultaneously. And so just showing up for each other, even in those moments
Yeah,
that
I
are
really like that too. And again, I really like this the conversation towards the end with Uncle Frank and Dwayne, and just like the idea that like the suffering is what makes you you. I think that that's a great lesson that I do believe now, and I wish someone had imparted that on me when I was in high school.
yeah, yeah,
All right, just final thoughts on the movie.
yeah. I loved it. I just
Yeah,
loved it, and I it made me realize that I need to go back and watch a lot of movies now that I'm a mother, that they will be different.
yeah,
It'll be a different experience for me. It's not like watching, um, movies now.
yeah.
It's interesting to go back and think about what I was thinking when I watched the movie the first time, and then how I'm seeing all of the characters differently. It was a really great experiment.
Yeah, we've been doing that on the show, and it's been really a really fun experience. I agree. I mean, I really liked this movie. I'm so glad you picked it. I really enjoyed watching it again, and would recommend anybody watch it. Like, it's definitely worth watching.
It was great. It was really fun.
Yeah. Well, Catherine, this has been a lot of fun. Where can people go to connect with you or learn more about you? Anything you want to share or promote?
Sure. I am on Instagram at underscore the Cabro,
Okay.
and I am also on Substack at the Cabro.
Cool. Well, I'll link to that in the show notes. Catherine Brown, ladies and gentlemen. Catherine, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Anthony.